Mr. Sergeant of Arms, invite the members into the chamber and close the doors. I hereby declare the House of Representatives of the 112th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee now in session. Would the members please stand? With the visitors in the gallery please stand and remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Darby will serve as chaplain of the day. Representative Darby, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This started about 6 weeks ago for me because I didn't know exactly how it was all going to happen. I didn't know if Miss Kim would just tap me on the shoulder and say, it's your time today. So I keep a chronological Bible by my bedside. So about 6 weeks ago, I was thumbing through it, wondering if my name was ever called, how I was going to react to this. Very first page, I opened it up, Exodus 28, the breastplate of decision. And it hit me right between the eyes on what I'm doing here. And I went a little bit further and started researching it, went to the King James Version, breastplate of judgment is what it was, the way they used it there. And I'm just in awe of God's majesty all around us. And we as members, we don't physically have the 12 stones, but what we do have that's granted by the people of this state and granted by the will of God is we represent the grand three divisions of this state. Guys, what an honor. And I stand before you here as a member of 98, and I've, in my 40 years of accountability, there's two types of people. You got black, white, Republican, Democrat, it don't matter. You're either a problem solver or a problem maker. And I stand with the 98 members here with the best problem solvers in the country. Thank you. And let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day you have given us and sending your only son to die on the cross so we might have eternal life. Dear Lord, give us the breastbone of decision to make the decisions that gives us the lives of Tennesseans a better place to call home and glorify your name. Watch over us this week and enrich us for the common goal of saving lost souls. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Representative Darby will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Roll call.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Speaker, 92 members present.
Let the journal reflect that Representatives Byrd, Carter, Ogles, Howe are excused. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Welcoming and honoring.
Welcome and honoring Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And being the only licensed registered professional engineer in the General Assembly, it's my honor tonight to celebrate 100 years this week of the Board of Engineering and Architectural Examiners. So for 100 years, they've been making sure that people can count. Although I may be the only one in the General Assembly, I'm not the only registered engineer on Capitol Hill. I believe our esteemed Governor Bill Lee also shares in that distinction. So anyway, congratulations to the Board of Engineers and Architectural Licensing Examiners.
Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Speaker. Like all state reps from Northeast Tennessee, to stand and give honor to our mayors up in the balcony that have come from the First Development District of Northeast Tennessee. We welcome you here and thank you for everything you do for our counties.
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier, I didn't get a chance to welcome my wife, Kara, and my middle daughter, Ella, but my youngest daughter stayed. She's up to my left. If you would welcome her, she is a sixth grader, Addie Garrett, and she was just baptized yesterday. So, honey, I'm very proud of you. Welcome.
Leader Lambert, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the Sergeant at Arms escort our guest into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, escort the guest to the well, please. Leader Lambert, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the clerk read the resolution.
Mr. Clerk, read the resolution, please.
House Joint Resolution 350 by Leader Lambert and others, a resolution to congratulate Candace Owens on relocating to Tennessee. Whereas the members of this General Assembly take great pleasure in welcoming to Tennessee yet another committed conservative and great American. And whereas Candace Owens is an astute and highly popular American conservative author, political commentator, and activist. And whereas she worked for the conservative advocacy group Turning Point USA between 2017 and 2019 as its communications director. And whereas Mrs. Owens hosted her weekly podcast, The Candace Owens Show, with PragerU between 2019 and 2021. And whereas in 2021, she joined The Daily Wire, for which she hosts Candace, a late night political talk show that features political and cultural issues of the day with her signature blend of intelligence and humor. And whereas Washington, D.C.'s loss is most certainly Tennessee's gain, as Ms. Owens will not only contribute significantly to our economy, but also add to our already burgeoning pool of creative talent. And whereas Mrs. Owens will serve as another robust voice against socialism and criminality as a Tennessean, now therefore be resolved by the House of Representatives of the 111th General Assembly, 112th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, the Senate concurring, that we congratulate Candace Owens on relocating to Tennessee.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as Ms. Owens is a guest of the House Republican Caucus today, if Chairman Faison may be recognized.
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things that has encouraged me for the last several years as I've watched Mrs. Candace Owens is she embodies the truth that you do not have to be judged by your background or what the average norm says you should be. And regardless of your politics, regardless of anything, your personal beliefs, I'm impressed with a person who can swim upstream. I'm impressed with a person, regardless of how they look at politics, who looks at what the norm is and says, you know what? I'm willing to challenge the norm. I'm willing to take on what I think is wrong, regardless of my background. That's impressive to me, and it is a huge honor for me to be able to stand up here and be a part of our General Assembly welcoming her to Tennessee. Leader Lambert.
Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's put that microphone back down at a reasonable level. Mr. Speaker, if it would be appropriate if our guest at this point would be recognized, if you would recognize Ms. Candace Owens for a few brief remarks.
Ms. Owens, you're recognized.
Thank you. This is such an incredible honor. When I heard that you guys were putting together this resolution, I jumped up and I said, I have to be there, just because it has been such a journey. And as you mentioned, it's been such a swim upstream to just be able to fight for other people to have a chance or to realize the amazing opportunities that are given to all of us, irrespective of race, color, or gender. If you are a person that is living in America today, you are a part of the most blessed people that have ever walked the face of the planet. My husband and I count ourselves among the most blessed because we just got to move into a state that recognizes a few simple things. First and foremost, that hard work pays off. If you work hard, it will pay off. And we don't all start at the same place in life, but in a country that we have today, a free market capitalist country, if you work hard, it will pay off. It has been difficult, but I will say that every single moment of everything that I have done over the past 5 years has been worth it. And I cannot wait to raise my children. I just had a little boy 12 weeks ago. My husband and I are so excited to be able to say that he was raised in the great state of Tennessee. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if you would do us the honor of joining us in the well for a photograph.
Members, we're still under welcoming and honoring Representative Carringer and McKenzie. Are y'all together or y'all?
Okay. Well, Sam, if you want to go first.
Okay, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to ask everyone if they would arise for a moment of silence. My high school, my alma mater, Austin East High School, had a whole horrific event that happened about an hour and a half or so ago. I don't know a lot about the details, but it was horrific, and it did involve a shooting, and there's a death involved. So regardless, someone's son or daughter is not going to come home today. So however you feel about, pluses and minuses, it's just horrific. And also the law enforcement officer was injured as well. So just want to ask you all for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Representative Carringer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say, from being from Knox County, that my heart is breaking, as well as I know that Sam's and the ones that represent Knox County. School superintendent of Knox County is my neighbor, and I just would like to ask for all of you all to please pray for Knox County schools, pray for Austin East, their staff. It's really hard to put into words what to say, but I do want everyone in Knox County to know that all across the state of Tennessee, that we are praying for those who have witnessed this today and that were involved in this. And my prayers and all of our love go out to everyone. But most importantly, I just want to let our school system and our local elected officials that we're here in Nashville and that we are praying for them.
Anyone else under welcoming and honoring? Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Introduction to resolutions.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all resolutions properly filed be introduced pursuant to Rule number 17 and placed on the consent calendar, referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Joint Resolutions congratulatory and memorializing.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all Senate joint resolutions congratulatory, memorializing, and lying on the desk be placed on the consent calendar pursuant to Rule number 17.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Resolutions lying over.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that all resolutions lying over be referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Introduction of bills, Senate bills on first consideration.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that Senate bills 126, 151, 258, 354, 702, 852, 873, 1120, and 1337 transmitted by the Senate be held on the desk pending third consideration of their companion House bills.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate bills on second consideration, House bills on second consideration.
Leader Lamberth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move the House bills 1,628 through 1,629 be passed on second consideration and be held on the desk and referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Petitions and memorials, reports from standing committees, reports from select committees, calendars. Mr. Speaker, the House has a consent calendar.
Chairman Zachary, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of the consent calendar on third and final consideration in keeping with Rule 50.
Gentleman moves passage of the consent calendar properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any objections been filed?
Mr. Speaker, item 8, House Joint Resolution 219, and item 9, House Joint Resolution 220, have both been objected to by Chairman Dixie. Item 38, House Joint Resolution 384, has been objected to by Chairman Reagan.
Anyone seeking recognition on the consent calendar? Seeing none. We're voting on the consent calendar. All members in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Take the vote, Mr. Clerk.
Ayes 91, 2 nays.
Having received the constitutional majority, I declare the consent calendar passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a regular calendar.
Call it first bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1371 by Chairman HULSEY relative to marriage. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk. Mr. Speaker, this is previously considered and reset for today's calendar.
Chairman Halsey, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 509.
Chairman Halsey moves to substitute and conform Senate Bill 509 without objection. So ordered. Chairman Halsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 509 and third and final consideration.
Chairman Halsey moves passage of Senate Bill 509 on third and final consideration. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call it first amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Halsey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill allows notaries public to solemnize marriages in Tennessee. With that, I renew my motion.
Chairman Halsey renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 509 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member cast their vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Ms. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 67, 16 nays, 7 present, unvoted.
Senate Bill 509 having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 185 by Weaver and others, a resolution to confirm the appointment of Laura Cardozo-Moore Franklin to the State Textbook Instructional Materials Quality Commission. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Joint Resolution is on the desk.
Representative Weaver, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 218 for House Joint Resolution 185.
Representative Weaver moves to substitute Senate Joint Resolution 218 for House Joint Resolution 185. Properly seconded. Representative Weaver, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur to Senate Joint Resolution 218.
Representative Weaver moves to concur in Senate Joint Resolution 218. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Weaver, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On passage of this Senate Joint Resolution 218, this is a confirmation of appointment of Lori Cardoza-Moore to the State Textbook and Instructional Materials Quality Commission. I renew my motion.
Representative Weaver renews her motion. Any discussion? Representative Johnson and Knox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, I can't get my cord to work here. There are almost 7 million Tennesseans to choose from for the State Textbook Commission, and we choose the executive director of an organization that's been on a hate group list, one who said 30% of Muslims are terrorists, and one who is a 9/11 truther. One who said this in a video while trying to recruit folks to the insurrection in DC. God did not put us on this earth to be cowards. He brought us into the world 150 years ago. He brought us into the world now, and he equipped you and I with everything we need to win this battle. But we can't be afraid. We cannot be cowards. We have to go in, march into the battlefield, and go to the front line and hold the line. She continued with, and the last thing that I want to say, I want to speak to our veterans and our active duty military. You all know who you are. You swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies both foreign and domestic. And if there was ever a time that we need for you to fulfill that commitment, it's now. I think that's frightening. I believe that there are millions of people in this state that would serve our textbook commission well. It's not about is this person able to do the job? It's about, is this someone we elevate at the state level? Someone who's a 9/11 truther, someone who believes that 30% of Muslims are terrorists, and someone who literally tried to incite violence and a military coup at our Capitol. I think we're better than that, and I think this is a huge mistake.
Representative Weaver, you have anything?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 218, those in favor vote aye. When the bell rings, those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does every member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 66, 26 nays, 2 present, not voted.
Senate Joint Resolution 218 having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare it concurred in. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is tabled. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 930 by Representative Hurt, relative to state symbols.
Representative Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 930 on third and final consideration.
Representative Hurt moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 930 aims to make the ladder the state tool. I am carrying this bill at the request of a constituent who is held in very high regard in his community. And he has some interesting thoughts about the ladder, and I would ask that you listen and make your own decision, members. The ladder is a tool that is uplifting, hence inspirational. Many ladders are made from the tulip poplar, which is the state tree of Tennessee. Additionally, the ladder might be seen as bipartisan. It stands firmly on 2 legs. They work together to lift up the issues represented by the rungs. The rungs represent reaching across the aisle. The more they reach over an agreement, the stronger the ladder. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hurt renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 930 vote aye. When the bell rings, those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 69, 14 nays, 7 present, not voted.
House Bill 930, having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 487 by Representative Smith and others relative to family life education. Mr. Speaker, it was previously considered and reset for today's calendar.
Representative Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 487 on third and final consideration.
Representative Smith moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 487 will provide a uniform definition of the family life curriculum that's already in the Tennessee law, currently in sections 49-6, 1301 through 1307, because of language relative to population triggers and per population pregnancies. Only 7 counties are currently under this uniform definition. We're going to make sure that all counties are treated equally. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Smith renews her motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Kershaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for bringing the bill. I just want to make sure when we expand this, is this a new requirement that teachers find time in the day to teach this, or is this just part of the normal health curriculum? Would you mind speaking to that?
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. This basically says that LEA, when they are adopting their local curriculum for family life, that they adopt the current code that's in the Tennessee Code annotated. This is not mandating additional time. It's not changing anything about the local direction. It's just saying that as a LEA is making this definition and creating their curriculum, that they go back to the current code, which was adopted, by the way, in 2012 by this General Assembly.
Representative Kershaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that. So if we've got a teacher watching at home who's saying, well, are you putting one more thing on the list that I've got to find time in the day to do? The answer to that question is no. This is really about how that curriculum is formulated. Is that correct?
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative Kershaw, thank you. Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to thank you for bringing the bill. It is a very simple bill, but I think it does clarify some things that there were questions about, at least, that, look, what the law says it is and what the curriculum is very clear cut. So thank you. It's a sensitive topic, but I mean, there are other bills that are very controversial on this subject. This is just a very straightforward, common sense way to address this that clears up some questions that have been out there from years on what exactly is the statute referring to. So thank you for carrying it. I just want to stand and say it's a good bill.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 487 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 78, 12 nays.
House Bill 487 has received a constitutional majority. I hereby declare it passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1137 by Representative Grills and others relative to public officials. Mr. Speaker, it was previously considered and reset for today's regular calendar.
Representative Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for passage of HB 1137 on third and final consideration.
Representative Grills moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call the first amendment.
Mr. Speaker, on March 29th, 2021, the House adopted House Civil Justice Committee Amendment number 1. So the body is on House Bill 1137 as amended.
Representative Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This legislation is a First Amendment protection bill that does 2 very important things. First, this bill protects the worship services. It does not allow for church sport leagues, soup kitchens, and potlucks and other non-service events to take place. Second, this bill does allow for a church to be quarantined in the event of a serious health crisis, such as a sewage leak, rodent infestation, or other safety code issues that have been put into place to protect the public. Because of the vital nature of this bill, I have worked with the governor's staff on this issue, as well as rolling this legislation to work with several members from both sides of the aisle. I want to thank all of them that have worked with me over the past few weeks, and I greatly appreciate their affirmative vote. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Grills renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1137 as amended vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 70, 18 nays, one present, not voting.
House Bill 1137 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1303 by Representative Bricken and others relative to jury service.
Representative Bricken, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for passage of House Bill 1303 on third and final consideration.
Representative Bricken moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Civil Justice Committee Amendment number 1.
Vice Chairman Jernigan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as Senate Amendment 1, move to withdraw.
Hang on 1 second, Vice Chairman. I think it moves to adopt, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Speaker, we're on the House bill. The Senate, this was a conflict item. The Senate has not passed that companion bill yet.
Vice Chairman Jernigan.
Sorry, I got the wrong script, and I move to adopt.
Vice Chairman Jernigan moves adoption of amendment number 1, promptly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Bricken, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill will allow a citizen of Tennessee who is 75 years or older to be excused from jury duty by providing a simple declaration that they have a physical or mental condition and are unable to serve. With that explanation, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Bricken renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Chair Lady Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the sponsor yield. I just want to clarify, I've heard from some of my judges, this is permissive. It's not saying that people over 75 cannot serve, because my judges tell me they're the best jurors they get. So I just want to make that clear for the record.
Representative Bricken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely. This only allows a citizen 75 years or older to file a declaration that they're unable to serve for a mental or physical condition, or their personal representative can file that on their behalf.
Chair Lady Hazelwood.
Just wanted to be clear.
Leader Gant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can you drill down into the exemption? Does that include medical?
Representative Bricken.
The declaration that they file can declare a medical condition, a physical condition, a mental condition. And as long as that declaration is written and the jury coordinator of that county accepts the condition, they will be excused from jury duty.
Leader Gant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Curcio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, sponsor. I know this is something we've worked on together for a couple of years, and I just want to thank you for your patience as we made it through the committee process. I think we've come up with really a very good product here that I think strikes to the heart of exactly what our constituents have asked us for. So thank you for doing that, and I look forward to continuing to support this legislation. Thank you, sir.
Representative Bricken.
I renew my motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Representative Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Certainly.
Quick question. Is this going to keep the people over 75 from having to appear at all for jury duty? Right now, they have to go in and be excused, but this will allow them to just send in a statement, is what I can understanding from you, where they won't even have to go in to appear for jury duty. Is that correct?
Representative Bricken.
Mr. Speaker, the jury coordinator will prepare the declaration form, and when they mail out and contact the prospective juries, that declaration form will be part of that mailer, which that person or personal representative can then mail back to the jury coordinator and then be an option to be excused. Doesn't mean it's automatic, but the jury coordinator will make that decision.
Representative Beck.
So that would prevent these people over 75 from having to go down.
Representative Bricken. Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1303 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? McKenzie, aye. HULSEY, aye. Stewart, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, 2 nays.
House Bill 1303 having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1418 by Chairman Holtzclaw, relative to operations of off-highway vehicles on certain highways. Mr. Speaker, Senate bills on the desk.
Chairman Holtzclaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 1178 on third and final consideration. Substitute and conform.
Chairman Holtzclaw moves substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1178, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Chairman Holtzclaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 1178 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Holtzclaw moves passage of Senate Bill 1178 on third and final consideration, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call the First Amendment.
House Transportation Committee Amendment Number 1. Mr. Speaker, same as Senate Amendment Number 1.
Vice Chairman Hall, you're recognized. Withdraw. Vice Chairman Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Holtzclaw, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Basically, Senate Bill 1178 authorizes operation of off-highway vehicles on certain segments of the state highway in Unicoi County. I renew my motion, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Holtzclaw renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor yield.
Representative Holtzclaw.
Yes.
Representative Shaw.
Is this just for Union County or is this statewide application?
Chairman Holtzclaw.
This is just for Unicoi County. It's a certain specific stretch of state highway, state road.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1178, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member casts a vote, does any member wish to change their vote? McKenzie, aye. Kumar, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, no nays.
Senate Bill 1178, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1187 by Representative Garrett and others, relative to criminal procedure.
Representative Garrett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1187 on third and final consideration.
Representative Garrett moves passage, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Garrett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hang on, let me get to my. What this legislation does, members, is that electronic data that is stored in a facility outside of the state of Tennessee. Right now, we do not have a long-arm statute where our subpoena power can reach that information. So in sex trafficking cases where potential defendants speak over social media, that information is stored outside Tennessee. What this legislation does is it provides our law enforcement agencies to subpoena or issue search warrants on information that's outside the state of Tennessee. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll renew my motion.
Representative Garrett renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1187, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member casts their vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Kershaw, aye. Kumar, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 92, no nays, one present, not voted.
House Bill 1187, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1199 by Representative Garrett and others, relative to asbestos-related liability. Mr. Speaker, Senate bills on the desk.
Representative Garrett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 0873.
Representative Garrett moves substitute and conform Senate Bill 873, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 0873 on third and final consideration.
Representative Garrett moves passage of Senate Bill 873 on third and final consideration. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Civil Justice Committee Amendment number 1, Mr. Speaker, it's the same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Vice Chairman Jernigan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this one is right this time. Same as Senate Amendment 1, move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does, members, is that in 2016, we passed comprehensive asbestos legislation here, somewhat of a cleanup bill. What happens in these cases is that when someone sues for an asbestos-related claim, they name all kinds of defendants. Right now, I'm in a case of my own. It's not asbestos-related, but we're spending an enormous amount of time to figuring out who's going to represent what defendant and how they connect to the plaintiff's claims. So what this does, it cleans up and prevents the idea that someone can sue for a asbestos claim and name 30 defendants that may not have anything to do with the plaintiff's claim. So it narrows who you can claim as a defendant to seek relief under a lawsuit. So the purpose of this is also to eliminate what's happening across the country. Like in Ohio, there was one potential plaintiff that sued and named 125 defendants. Probably all of those 125 defendants were not related to the plaintiff's claim. So this narrows that claim for asbestos here in Tennessee. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I will renew my motion.
Representative Garrett renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 873 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member cast their vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 70, 22 nays.
Senate Bill 873 having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1362 by Representative Garrett and others relative to probate.
Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage House Bill 1362 on third and final consideration.
Representative Garrett moves passage. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Civil Justice Committee Amendment number 1.
Vice Chairman Jernigan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to adopt Amendment 1.
Vice Chairman Jernigan moves adoption amendment number 1. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt it. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I'm carrying this bill for Judge Carter. This relates to a probate matter when it involves small estates, and that's defined as estates that someone passes away and has no real property, and this personal property is less than $50,000. We're running into some issues of what that gives the personal representative, for lack of a better word, the authority to do. So what that's going to be doing is issuing a small estate affidavit with a limited letter of authority, which can give more authority to someone that has to file a small estate. I actually do these in my practice that can cause all kinds of problems of what that authority actually does. And this clarifies that statute to allow folks to handle in a more efficient way a matter that's under $50,000 when you have to go to what is called small probate. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll renew my motion and be happy to answer any questions that the body may have.
Representative Garrett renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Towns.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Sponsor, thank you for the bill as well. When you put a cap on it about 50,000, does this bill make it efficient where it doesn't eat up that little money that little small estate may have that's going to, be consumed by courts and lawyers?
Representative Garrett.
Yes, and quite to put it simply, that's why we kind of have the general sessions level to equate it to what we have now, which is the people's court. The filing fees are a lot less. You typically do not need a lawyer to do this. So that's the purpose of having this $50,000, which, by the way, that's already the threshold. It's $50,000 or below. So it's designed to get to court quicker and be cheaper, so the maximum amount can be given to the beneficiaries at that particular time.
Representative Towns.
Thank you for the legislation.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1362 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays.
House Bill 1362 and received constitutional majority. I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 240 by Representative Ramsey and others relative to programs to reduce recidivism.
Chairman Ramsey, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 240 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Ramsey moves passage. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill. Move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption. Amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Ramsey, you're recognized.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does make the bill. This is a transition center bill as a portion of the governor's correction reform bill. And it's a new and permissive concept which could be compared to a regional jail for existing low-risk inmates with the purpose of providing trade-related education. As the bill is written, it would allow Blount, Knox, Loudoun, Monroe, and Sevier counties and their courts to agree by interlocal agreements to establish a shared facility related to education and can be provided ultimately resulting in a reduction of recidivism rates. So with that explanation, pending further questions, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Ramsey renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 240 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
House Bill 240, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 641 by Representative Alexander and others relative to lifetime sportsman licenses. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Alexander, you are recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 0119.
Representative Alexander moves to substitute conform to Senate Bill 119, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 0119 on third and final consideration.
Representative Alexander moves passage of Senate Bill 119 on third and final consideration, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Ag and Natural Resources Committee Amendment number 1. Mr. Speaker, it's similar to Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Halford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you. This bill would allow people who are adopting children to be able to get them a lifetime hunting and fishing license as long as they're not over 13, just like they would if the child had been born in their home. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Alexander renews her motion. Any discussion on the bill? It was Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to thank the sponsor for this bill. One of the best investments I made for my kids when they were born was buying them a sportsman's license. My 19-year-old son was trout fishing yesterday with the same sportsman's license. And this is a great way for us as Tennessee to lead in adoption across the nation, be able to extend benefits like this to those children after they're adopted. So I want to thank you for this bill.
Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and sponsor. I just want to say thank you and also encourage the members that this is a good policy for Tennessee. I am adoptive daddy, and if this would have been in law when I adopted my son 15 years ago, I would have certainly taken advantage of this. And I love to see Tennessee move forward. And this is one of the things, regardless of what side of the aisle you fall on, this is a pro-life piece of legislation and a pro-adoption piece of legislation. So thank you, Representative, for bringing this, and I look forward to voting for it.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 119, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member cast their vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays.
Senate Bill 119 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 201 by Representative Alexander relative to consumption of alcoholic beverages on premises.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 0201 on third and final consideration.
Representative Alexander moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill would allow us to have alcohol at 5 locations in historical Jonesboro, Tennessee. I renew my motion.
Representative Alexander renews her motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 201, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 80, 11 nays, 4 present, not voted.
House Bill 201 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 732 by Representative Alexander and others relative to real property.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 0732 on third and final consideration.
Representative Alexander moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Commerce Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill, so we're going to defer to the sponsor for an explanation. We move to adopt.
Chairman Vaughn moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt it. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill would allow women or men who are being abused and in a very domestic violence situation to be able to get out of their lease with their tenant early. They would need to provide either a protection order that has been against the person doing the violence on them or proof of criminal charges. I renew my motion.
Representative Alexander renews her motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 732 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member cast their vote? Does any member wish to change their vote? Ms. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 89, no nays, 4 present, not voted.
House Bill 732 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 925 by Representative Cochran and others relative to cybersecurity.
Representative Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 0925 on third and final consideration.
Representative Cochran moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does rewrite the bill, so I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does currently, LEAs, local school districts, they already have district-wide school safety plans. They include things like crisis intervention, emergency response, emergency management. So physical danger type situations. What this does is add cybersecurity to those plans, and the state actually develops those plans for the local LEAs, so it's not a burden on them. With that, I renew my motion.
Representative Cochran renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? All those in favor of House Bill 925 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, no nays.
House Bill 925, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 127 by Representative Hall relative to transportation. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 139.
Representative Hall moves substitute conform Senate Bill 139, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to passage of Senate Bill 139 on its third and final consideration.
Representative Hall moves passage of Senate Bill 139 on third and final consideration, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Transportation Committee Amendment number 1, Mr. Speaker, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Whitson, you are recognized.
Move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
No further amendments.
Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is for anyone that's been caught in a traffic jam. It simply allows tow trucks and recovery vehicles the legal authority to use the shoulder of the road to clean up an accident when called by law enforcement. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hall renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 139 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
Senate Bill 139, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 180 by Representative Hall and others relative to mental health. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 615.
Representative Hall moves substitute conform Senate Bill 615, probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the passage of Senate Bill 615 on its third and final consideration.
Representative Hall moves passage of Senate Bill 615 on third and final consideration, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Health Committee Amendment number 1, Mr. Speaker, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Terry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to withdraw.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill requires mental health providers to direct patients that shows signs of suicide or inflicting bodily harm upon themselves to the proper mental health counselors and mental health professionals before being discharged. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hall renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 615 as amended vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member cast their vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, no nays, 1 present, not voting.
Senate Bill 615 and receive a constitutional majority. I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 462 by Chairman Sapicki relative to graduation rates.
Chairman Sapicki, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 462 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Sapicki moves passage, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment also rewrites the bill, so I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt it. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
No further amendments, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Sapicki, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we have an issue with remedial coursework in our colleges and universities. The Tennessee Promise graduation rate has now dropped to 51%. What this bill does is it creates a study over the next year with the Department of Education looking at our high schools to figure out things that we can do to work in the best interests of the students moving forward so that when they go to college, we have the lowest remedial coursework in the country and the highest graduation rate in Tennessee Promise. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Sapicki renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? All those in favor of House Bill 462 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member cast their vote, does any member wish to change their vote? Lamberth, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, no nays.
House Bill 462, and received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1049 by Chairman Sapiki and others relative to audits.
Chairman Sapiki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1049 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Sapiki moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up first amendment.
House State Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Keesling, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment does rewrite the bill. I defer to the sponsor for further explanation. We do move to adopt, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Keesling moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Sapiki, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1049 is a taxpayer fund transparency bill. As amended, this bill will require the comptroller to annually audit an insurance pool, special fund, reserve fund, or legal or administrative entity administering such funds. This bill will clarify which associations and nonprofit corporations must be audited by the comptroller. The requirements of the bill would apply to records that are not open for public if the association or nonprofit corporation was established for the benefit of local government officials or counties, cities, towns, or other local governments, or as a municipal bond financing pool, receives due service fees or any other income from local government officials or local governments that constitute at least 30% of its total annual income, and is authorized under state law to obtain coverage for its employees in the TCR Consolidated Retirement System. Mr. Speaker, I renew my bill.
Chairman Sapiki renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 1049 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 92, no nays.
House Bill 1049 and received constitutional majority. I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 525 by Chairman Sapiki and others relative to K-12 education.
Chairman Sapiki, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 525 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Sapiki moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up first amendment.
House Education Administration Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does rewrite the bill, so I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Sapiki, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House Bill 525 is a bill that relates back to the special session we have on learning loss. In that bill we passed way back in January, LEAs were given the ability to hire non-credentialed teachers to teach end-of-course subjects, and those were given special emergency rules by the Board of Education to promulgate those. The problem is those expire in July. What this bill does is allow it for the 21-22 school year, only 1 year, that if LEAs cannot find a licensed teacher to teach a particular course, they have a 1-year exemption to be able to hire somebody that's not credentialed to teach that course to bridge the gap forward for 1 year. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Sapiki renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 525 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
House Bill 525 and received a constitutional majority. I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 928 by Representative Campbell.
Representative Campbell, at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to roll House Bill 928 1 week to Monday's regular calendar.
Without objection, rolled 1 week to Monday's regular calendar. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1336 by Representative Baum and others relative to services offered through online marketplace providers.
Representative Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 1336 on third and final consideration.
Representative Baum moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up first amendment.
House Commerce Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Vaughn, Vaughn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does rewrite the bill, so we're going to defer to the sponsor for a full explanation, but we move to adopt.
Chairman Vaughn moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill moves the regulation of online marketplace platforms from the local level to the state level. It prevents local regulations from hindering commerce. The bill also prohibits local governments from soliciting personal information through these sites except by court order or subpoena. This is a business-friendly bill designed to promote commerce by reducing regulations. It's also designed to help Tennesseans by protecting their personal identifiable information and by facilitating commerce between the very buyers and sellers, many of whom are our constituents. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Baum renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sponsor. So if a local entity or government wants to regulate the sale of alcohol online, this would prevent them from doing that?
Representative Baum.
This would apply to online marketplace platforms, the kind of platforms that facilitate transactions between a separate buyer and a seller. If there's a company that's selling their product online themselves through their website, then this wouldn't apply to them as an online marketplace platform.
Representative Clemens.
So give me some examples, if you would, of what qualifies as an online marketplace platform.
Representative Baum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill has in mind are online applications, software, websites, where goods and services are advertised and offered and made available with some kind of a way of communicating offers between buyers and sellers. Some examples would be eBay, Etsy, Instacart, Poshmark, Shopify, Facebook Marketplace, Upwork, TaskRabbit, and there are many others.
Representative Clemens.
So if an individual wanted to sell something, or if a company was selling alcohol through Facebook Marketplace, this would prevent a municipality from regulating that?
Representative Baum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It would prevent local governments from regulating the online marketplace.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would this also apply to Airbnb, VRBO, or the like?
Representative Baum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it would.
Representative Clemens.
That's what I was afraid of. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the question? All those in favor of House Bill 1336 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 65, 22 nays, 6 present unvoted.
House Bill 1336, having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 549 by Representative Gillespie and others relative to compensation for the death of emergency responders in the line of duty.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 0549 on third and final consideration.
Representative Gillespie moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Local Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt.
Chairman Crawford moves adoption of amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Gillespie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this bill does is it adds deputy jailer to the existing language of TCA section 751-210. And with that, I renew my motion, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gillespie renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 549 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 88, 2 nays.
House Bill 549, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 943 by Representative Manis, relative to employee rights.
Representative Manis, at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move to roll House Bill 943 to the next available regular calendar, please.
Without objection, roll to the next available calendar. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 966 by Representative Carringer.
Representative Carringer, you are recognized at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to roll this bill to April 21st regular calendar.
Without objection, roll to April 21st, regular calendar. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that completes the regular calendar.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a message calendar.
Call up next message, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 72 by Representative HULSEY and others relative to state inmates. Mr. Speaker, on April 7th, 2021, the Senate substituted House Bill 72 for Senate Bill 727, adopted Amendment 1, and passed House Bill 72 as amended.
Representative HULSEY, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur to the Senate Amendment Number 1, which adds a qualifying factor that the person must not be serving a sentence of more than one conviction for first-degree murder or facilitation of first-degree murder.
Representative Halsey moves to concur in Senate Amendment Number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Amendment number 1, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, no nays.
Senate Amendment Number 1, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it concurred in without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Call up next message, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 267 by Chairman Reagan and others relative to sunset laws. Mr. Speaker, on April 5th, 2021, the Senate substituted House Bill 267 for Senate Bill 40, adopted Amendment 1, and passed House Bill 267 as amended.
Chairman Reagan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur in Senate Amendment Number 1.
Chairman Reagan moves to concur in Senate Amendment Number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Amendment Number 1, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Zachary, Ms. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 90, no nays.
Senate Amendment Number 1, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare it concurred in without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Next message, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1611 by Representative BRICKEN relative to Tullahoma. Mr. Speaker, on April 5th, 2021, the Senate substituted House Bill 1611 for Senate Bill 1631, adopted Amendment 1, and passed House Bill 1611 as amended.
Representative BRICKEN, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur with Senate Amendment Number 1.
Representative BRICKEN moves to concur in Senate Amendment Number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Amendment Number 1, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to needs to change the vote? Maniside. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, no nays.
Senate Amendment Number 1, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare concurred in without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Next message, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that completes the message calendar.
Next order of business.
Unfinished business.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Bill 13 be heard in the Health Committee this week.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Bill 1351 be heard in Finance, Ways and Means Subcommittee this week.
You've heard the motion. Any objection? Without objection, so ordered. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, earlier today, you heard me withdraw or bump off the consent calendar HJR 384. Unfortunately, that resolution contained a mistake that could not be easily remedied with an amendment. Therefore, I move to withdraw HJR 384 from the committee and the House.
You've heard the motion. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Announcements.
Announcements. Any announcements? Chairman Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Health Committee will have its last calendar April 21st. If you have a bill to be heard in full health, please put your bill on notice no later than Wednesday, April 14th at 3:30 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Lamar, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Shelby delegation, we will be meeting tomorrow on our typical call, and we will have our Shelby delegation night out on the 20th. So I'll be sending out details soon.
Thank you. Chair Lady Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to remind everyone that the Commissioner of F&A will be presenting the governor's supplemental budget tomorrow in Finance at 3 o'clock. So if you're interested to see what's in there and what isn't, please join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Speaker, 94 members present.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
That completes the regular order, Mr. Speaker.
Leader Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until 9 a.m. on Wednesday, April 14th, 2021.
Without objection, the House stands in recess until 9 a.m. on Wednesday, April 14th, 2021.